That's basically it.
Sure, no problem. So I can run you through it, and if you're a little familiar with it, that's good. I'll go through it. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but if you have any questions or there's like specific areas that you want to look at more in depth, maybe just stop me and let me know.
Okay.
Sound good?
Yeah, sounds great.
Cool. So, and you guys can see my screen?
Yep.
Awesome. So, basically what you get with ActualizeIt is typically it's going to live, at your location. You could host it in the cloud if you want to. That's an option these days. It really doesn't matter where it lives necessarily, but you can access it, from wherever you are. Usually with FileMaker Pro, that's the software it's written in. You can put that on your computer. There's also parts of the system that can be accessed via like a web browser or on your phone too. So I can show you that as well. But mainly what you get are the kind of the pieces of the puzzle across the top here. The dashboard is kind of what you see when you log in, and it kind of presents you with stuff that's in progress. There's a bidding component, job tracking. We break the jobs down into components just kind of for reporting. Work orders, for lack of a better term, is where you would put like in-house labor typically. POs and expenses would be charges that you outsource. There's an invoicing component, so you can do invoices against jobs. There's kind of a Rolodex component, so people and companies would be anybody that you deal with outside of your company, whether it's outside vendors or other contacts, that kind of stuff. There's a scheduling module that I can show you. And there's also what we call the vault. That back in the day was for like tapes and DVDs. Obviously, there's less of that stuff these days, but people still use that to track things like hard drives, gear. It's really for any like physical things that you want to track.
Oh, that would be awesome because we don't have that right now, and it's a nightmare. So even something really rudimentary would be helpful.
So, sorry, I'm going to ask a question. Is this when someone logs in, depending any user within Greenhouse within the studio here, is this what they see, or is it customized based on what you've been granted permission to see, or how does that work?
Yeah, exactly right. So it's role based. So there's also what we call the admin section. So let me just show you that quickly. This is kind of where you can set up preferences about your company. We have companies that use it for different what I call disciplines. So you could use things like the post-production bid, like the AICP. We have people who use it for the AICE, AICP too, for production work. We have other clients that use it for, different types of things. We have both the AICE and AICP bid forms built into the system, but we also do just kind of custom bid forms too for people who are doing different kinds of work, just FYI.
Okay. And is that something that the ad responsible for adding in, like if we had to change our rates or like our own standard rates?
Yeah, exactly. So usually what we do is, just here's the categories, on the AIC, AICP. You can change those yourself if you want, or just use the ones that are out of the box. The work code section is essentially the rate card. So again, kind of out of the box, we have kind of the published AICE and AICP in there. But again, you could import those from you guys. You can change those. You can change your rates. You can also do client-based rate cards, which I'll show you in a minute. And then finally, kind of getting back to your initial question, the staff section is where the users would live. So that would just be anybody who uses it. And then, we have several levels of access built in. And then depending on your login, that will grant you access to do certain things. So again, that's something that's customizable. The whole system's customizable, but if an admin person can typically do everything I'm showing you, like a timesheet user maybe can only do their own timesheet. A regular user might be somebody who could do like bids but not change rates or something. So kind of the sky's the limit on how you want to do that, and it's really up to your business rules as opposed to determine who can do what.
And I noticed in the admin section, and I just want to make sure this is, if I'm looking at that correct, the admin can set the modules that are available. Is that right? So if we weren't going to use this, obviously we have our own internal invoicing and expense system that we're required to use. So like we could just remove that so that's not at the top when people come in.
Yeah, I mean, that's something that we could help you with. This section over here is kind of more for kind of informational purposes. If there's things that you wanted to like hide or not give people access to or not use at all, that's something that we would just set up for you initially when we kind of install it,
Okay, fantastic. Okay, thanks.
That all make sense?
So this does actually have a time reporting element to it.
It does, yes. So you can do timesheets, and I can show you that in a little more detail. Let me just show you quickly. Let's go do a bid. So
Okay.
if I do a new bid, and then I'll show you the jobs and the timesheets. I'm going to do what I call a new group. You'll notice down here I picked post, so that's going to give me an AICE type bid. All the other stuff in here is going to be drop-down lists. So you know, who's the client, who's the production company, who's the any of the other information you see here, and again, all customizable. That information is all coming from the database of companies on the back end. So in other words, every time you do some work with somebody, it's going to be tracked because everybody's using the same information. As opposed to like a spreadsheet, it's very difficult to kind of get that information. Somebody might have changed it. It's hard to do reporting across spreadsheets, that kind of good stuff. So
I got to ask, is that something that an admin here can update, or every time we have a new client or someone, does that on the back end have to be added by your team?
it doesn't have to be added by us. Basically, you could think about it as any of the data in the system is up to you guys. So
perfect.
We're never going to enter anything into the system. Any of the functionality of the system is something that you would come to us for.
Wonderful. Okay.
And then if you do have other data in other data sources at your company, like maybe you have a list of clients that's updated somewhere else, a lot of times we can also import those or query it or something. So that's the kind of thing we could get into if you want to do integrations. FileMaker is very good at that too. So the goal is less duplication of effort, obviously. So if we can help you with that, all the better.
Wonderful.
And then you can just say, okay, this is a cool job we're working on. To actually build the bid, you can just go in and plug in some different quantities. You can see how I'm just changing between the categories here. I can also look at everything at once if you prefer. I can also change the rate for this particular project. If you have a different rate for this, is kind of a one-off. I can just put in a quantity, all that kind of good stuff. I also mentioned the client-based rate cards. So if you did have a company that has exception pricing, you can plug that in at the client level, and then when you do a bid for them, it'll just automatically update it. You don't have to kind of do that every time. So that's just a little time saver there. You can also, make a PDF of the bid. That's kind of what it looks like out of the box. That's another area that we can change easily if you want to kind of rebrand it. You can throw your logo in there, obviously, but we can make it look and basically however you'd like. You could send it off, and the client or whoever's looking at it says, okay, it looks good, but could you change X, Y, Z? If you want to keep a copy of it, I'm going to make this Rev1, and I'm going to duplicate it and keep it in what I call the bid group. So the bid group is really just a way of keeping different iterations of the same bid kind of together so that you can access them easily. So you can see here it duplicated it, gave it a .2. I could just call this Rev2 or what have you, and then go in and add services or make changes. Again, you don't have to do that, but that's just a good way of keeping revision history if you want to.
So the group, when you selected that thing, it said this group, that the group is like basically that estimate, that bid,
that's right.
That, right?
Because it has like one project, right? And then if you want to do multiple iterations of it with different services, a lot of times you just keep those within the group. That way you can access them easily and then see them all at once. And basically then when you want to work on the job, you can award the one that you want, and that'll give it a job number. And I'll just give it the next number in sequence. It's just a number. We can set up the job numbering itself however you'd like. Maybe you have another job number convention, or you have another system. It's again up to you guys.
So can that be manually entered since we have our own job system?
Yep. So you can see when I did it, it actually prompts me to either use our system or enter your own. And then you could say, okay, this one is a reference because we awarded the second one in the group, and go from there. So at the bid, after the bid, now you have a job. All the information from the bid kind of travels over. I could also add some staff resources here. Let's just say I'm the editor on this job. I'm going to plug in some dates for sake of argument. So let's just say I'm working on this from today through the end of next week. Again, maybe you have a producer or somebody else who's also working on it. You get the idea. we also, again, open up what we call a work order when the job awards. And again, think of the work order as just a place to kind of keep the charges that have been accruing on the project. So the actuals, really. So over here, you can see the line items that are in green are ones that have been estimated for this project. As a producer, I could just put charges kind of right on the job from here using this little palette and just say who did it and how long it took. And at that point, you can kind of see now I've got some charges against the job. If I go back up to the job level, you can kind of see, here's where I'm at bidding wise. Here's where I'm at so far on the job. Again, if I go back up to the bid, I can see that at the category level, estimate versus actual. I can drill down to the category and see estimate versus actual. We have this column that we call the override, which means maybe you want to bill to estimate. I can plug in whatever I want there. So basically what this is here's what I estimated, here's what actually happened, and here's what I want the client to see.
Okay, so like if you have a flat bid, and then that's kind of where you could tell if you've gone over or whatever.
Exactly. So you can kind of see how you did. This column isn't modifiable. That comes from the rest of the system. And if you want to see what makes up that, you can kind of see, I can drill down yet again and say, okay, here's the charges from that particular work order. So you can kind of see how it's all linked. I just, work order, job, bid, kind of all ties together like in real time as it's happening.
That's amazing.
Out of curiosity, does the system, I noticed that you can get the bid and things like that, it can export it to a PDF. Can you email or send notifications directly from the system? Like if you assign someone to it, do they get notification that they've been assigned, or how does that work?
So there's lots of different ways to do that. Just to kind of give you a quick glimpse at how that might work. If the person, say that it's an outside person outside of the company that you want to send the PDF to, I can use this little button here, and that actually made a PDF of the bid and attach it to an email to that person. So
that's awesome. Okay.
That's one way to do it. I'll show you. I also want to answer your timesheet question. I was getting to that, but as long as we're talking about the notifications, I'll show you just another example of where that might live. You can see that I assigned myself here with dates. What that does is actually blocks my time for those dates. And you can see that.
Wonderful.
You can see that graphically here. I'm looking at that for one project, right? So this is myself on this job. I can also go to the schedule and look at that across projects, right? So here's everybody and what they're working on for the week. I can look at it at the day level. I can look at it at the month level. I can do it by person. I can do it by rooms if you're doing that kind of scheduling, that kind of good stuff. I can reassign this stuff graphically here. I can take this and put it in another room just by dragging it around.
Cool.
At the day level, I could say maybe I'm working on this project in the morning, but I'm working on something else in the afternoon. All this is tied in to kind of answer your question about, using lots of different systems. You can see the scheduling isn't working in a vacuum. Yep. All the stuff that you're seeing here is the list of active jobs, right? It's your list of staff. All that stuff's tied in. And then, again, I'm going kind of fast. Save and notify could send an email to that person if you scheduled them. It could send them a Slack notification. We like to use Slack to do that too, if you're familiar with that program. So if people are in the system, notifications become less important because things like the dashboard, you can kind of see what's going on as it's happening, If you have people that aren't in the system and you want to notify them, you can do email, you can do Slack, you can do lots of other options.
For the schedule, when you log in, if you're an admin, do you see everyone's schedule? And if you log in as yourself, you only see your own schedule?
Again, it's up to you guys, basically how you want to handle those privileges. A lot of times, admins obviously can see everything. A lot of times, regular users can see the whole schedule, but not modify it sometimes. Finally, to get back to your timesheet question, if you're a timesheet user and you only have time access, you're going to see something like this. So what that means is I can log in, I can do my own time. You'll notice the interface is a little different because this is a section that's accessible via FileMaker, like I'm showing you, also via the web and also via the phone. So if I log in and I'm doing time, you can see here's those scheduled events that I created. So I can basically see what's been assigned to me. You can also give them as much or as little information about that as you want. So that's customizable. They can also use that to populate their timesheet, right? So if you assign them a job and a task, all they have to do is say how long it took, and they're done doing their time.
That's great. So let me ask you this. If you have a project that is coming up, but you haven't estimated, but someone wants to put someone on hold,
Yep.
can you go into the schedule and just put like a loop hold on someone a couple weeks down the line?
Sure. So
Without.
So what we do in our schedule, just kind of FYI, and you'll notice this, it's kind of easy to see if you look at that job that I did. When I put in a range of dates, what that did is it made individual events on each of those days, skipping the weekend. The reason we do it that way is so you can edit that, right? So you maybe don't need them on Friday. Maybe you only need them in the morning on Wednesday. So you can't do that if you had like a banner that went from Monday to Friday. You know what I mean? So we have this concept that we call a multi-book. So if you don't have a job yet, what you could do is a multi-book. And what that means essentially is it's a start date and an end date. You might have a person, and then they might just be holding on a particular thing that you don't know what it is yet. So you can see that I'm color coding this schedule also by status too. So each color is a different status. And you can see that I'm kind of quote unquote double booked here, even though, you know, this might be a first hold and this might be firm.
Awesome.
That makes sense? The rows will actually grow if you have multiple bookings. So if I move this down here and now I'm kind of triple booked, you see?
Yep. That's perfect. Okay.
And then to just kind of finish the thought on the timesheets, you know, the line items that you enter against those timesheets will show up here as against the work order for the job. And then you know, if you do time, like time of staff, you know, you might want to, as a producer, say, okay, I don't want to bill for that, or I want to bill more for it. You can adjust that if you are doing timesheets. So that this will remain intact. This is what they said they did. And again, this is an adjustment, so you could change what you're billing for it.
That was my next question. Like, can I, adjust there? Can I override for time as a producer?
You can, and you can also do you can do an approval process. Usually, what we have the timesheet users do is like submit the time when they're done, and then they can't change it again. If they make a mistake, you can change it as a producer. But usually, what that says is, okay, I'm done with this, and then that kind of will automatically check it as submitted. And if you want to do an approval, you can do that too. But you don't have to do that. But we do have some hooks in there if you want to do approvals.
Okay, great.
That all makes sense so far?
Yeah, this is great. Can you show me those vaults really quick? I know it's like a minimal part of but it's
so again, you know, the vault, sometimes we call that element tracking. If I make what I call an element, what that's going to do is essentially just create a new item, and the description of it might be something that you guys can tweak, or depending on what you're tracking, whether it's hard drives or cameras or whatever it is. But the bottom line is you can check that stuff in and out using, if you barcode, you know, just put a barcode like sticker on something. You can use a barcode scanner to check it in and out. You can also use the camera on the iPhone to do that if you don't have a scanner. But basically what it does is it just will find that item. If it's not in there, it'll automatically create it. And then as you're checking things in and out, it'll just keep a history of where it's been. You could also do, you know, shipping tickets if you want to. And then from there, you can do cool things like, you know, I'm going to ship it via FedEx and plug in the tracking number, and, you know, that'll hook into the FedEx website and all that kind of fun stuff. So, you know, that stuff's there if you need it. Again, really what it is just a list of physical items. So you can see that since I shipped this, now it's out. If I received it back, it would be in. So, you know, that's kind of the bottom line is, you know, if you have stuff that you want to keep track of where it is, you can check it in and out. And lately, we've been kind of doing stuff with that. Some of our clients will have things that they want to kind of book schedule-wise almost. So again, all that's really flexible. You can track if something's out on a job. You could put that into the schedule. You can see here we have people, rooms, jobs. You can also do gear or something. That's an option. So lots of options there. Cool. So just a couple other quick things. Again, we did kind of the work orders. The POs and expenses kind of work the same way. If you just hired an outside company to work on the project, you know, you basically say, you know, who's the vendor and what do they do? And that information will also kind of hit the job the same way the work orders would. And we just split them up really so that you can see that information separately if you do reporting on it. There is an invoicing component if you want to use it. We do that a couple different ways. Typically, sometimes our companies do what I call pre-billing, which is like they make an invoice for a percentage of the estimate. You could also flip the actual estimate or bid into an invoice, and that would have the line items on it if you want to. You can also flip the actuals into an invoice if you want to. So you could create an invoice from those. So, some of our clients do some or all of that, and some of them do none of it. They basically use the bid as a mechanism for billing, and that's handled in another system. And, kind of lastly in that regard, we sometimes can push that information into other systems. So some of our, smaller clients do that with QuickBooks. Some of our big agency clients have SAP or, some other big accounting package that we can hook into. So lots of options there.
How about reporting on specific functions? Like, say we want to figure out how much editorial we build for the month of May versus how much audio we build for the month of May. Is that something that's easy to pull out?
Yep. So that's, again, kind of one of the big benefits of having all this disparate information in one place. You can kind of report on it very easily, and you can also set up, that's an area that we customize a lot. We have a suite of them built in. So if you see, depending on which report you run, it's basically going to break it down by that criteria, right? So by job, by bid, by task, by person, by vendor, by invoice. And when you click on any of them, you're going to get a filter, which just says, what specific information do you want to look at? A lot of times that's by date, show me everything we did for this person last quarter, show me everything we outsourced to this vendor, last year. And basically the reporting can give you summarized information. You can export that to Excel if you want to. That's basically an option for all of our reports too. And slice and dice it however you want. So again, there's lots of different variations of each of these reports. So there's probably 20 or 30 reports built in already. And then again, that's an area where, sometimes people do productivity a little differently or something. You could, see how you're doing. You can also track staff costs if you want to. That's something obviously an admin person can have access to, so that you might want to run a report and say, how did we do what we billed versus what it cost us, that kind of stuff. So again, kind of the sky's the limit there as far as how you want to slice and dice that info.
Okay, can you go back to those templates and can we quickly look at the digital template?
So I don't have a digital template in this demo per se.
Okay.
Again, kind of AIC and AICP are in here. I do have just kind of a generic, what I call a standard estimate. And the difference there is, these items could basically be for anything, any type of work you're doing. And if I do an estimate like that, what's going to happen is instead of having kind of again, the AIC or AICP format, it's really just a more generic bid with line items that you can add. So any item basically would be, if it was digital, a lot of times that's just labor, and we could usually just take a look at however you're doing it now and throw it into our system pretty easily,
Okay, no, that's good to know. We have half of us is, we're kind of looking at it from the content perspective, but we also do have a digital and print component to our department or to our company. So I think, that's something that I think that they would definitely be into this.
Cool. So, we can kind of silo the info too, if you want to. In other words, if you're a person that's doing post, you would log in and see that stuff. If you're a person that's doing print, you might just see that, so that's a possibility. And, really what's different between the disciplines in our system is the tasks, right? So the framework for everything else kind of remains pretty consistent. You can still do estimates, track the jobs, track the time, that kind of stuff, regardless of what kind of work's being done. It's really like the format of the bid and the line items on the bid that are changing,
Yep. And then as far as how is this? Are you subscription based? Are you?
Yeah, we do it.
Is it a monthly?
It's a monthly thing,
yearly?
And we do it. You could pay us yearly if you want. We typically do it monthly, and it's based roughly on the size of your company. So it's the kind of thing where we do it in tiers. We, kind of our base level is like 1 to 10 users, and then we kind of go like 10 to 20 kind of thing. So it's not like we're going to say, okay, you have 12 people versus 13. It's like, okay, how many people do you roughly have using it? And that basically drives the expense. And then we also just do the customization by the hour. So, there's a kind of a monthly fee to use the software. And then if you need to change it, we'll estimate that and kind of give you a price on how much that would cost.
Would you be able to have somebody put together like a price point for 50 to 75 users? That's probably what we would be.
Yeah.
Sure. And the other way you can think about it too is, if you have users that are, I'm sorry, go ahead.
50 and 75 and 100.
Sure. And I think I emailed a document to somebody over there that just already has that info in it. But I can send you that again. And
nope, probably has it. We'll grab it from him.
Cool. And you can think about like active users too. So if you guys have like a pool of freelancers, we can work with you on like activating and deactivating those guys too. So you don't have to pay for somebody that's not working for you,
Okay.
Yeah, I think everybody would.
I think everyone
we should have it. Okay.
Cool.
Yeah, we'll take a look at that and probably follow up with some additional questions or maybe schedule additional time with some other, I think the other EPs will need to take a look at this. So if you're fine with that, we might reach out for an additional like demo with a little bit larger of a group.
Yeah, no problem. I also recorded this one, so I can send that to you guys if you want. And I personally am out of town the rest of this week, but I'm happy to do another demo or talk or email or whatever pretty much anytime next week.
Yeah, that's perfect. One of our EPs is gone this week as well. But yeah, if you can send it over, that would be awesome.
No problem.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate the time.
No problem.
Really quick, Brian, before we hang up here, I just have a technical question.
Yep.
First of all, obviously it's based on FileMaker Pro.
Yep.
And that's something you host on your correct? Your premises?
We don't do the hosting. Typically, there's two ways you can do that. One is you host it yourself, that's really easy to set up. It's either Windows or Mac server that you just throw FileMaker server on, you put the databases on there, and you really never have to think about it again. So if you want to do it that way, you can. You can also access that from outside, but you would need like a VPN connection just to get into your network, So that's one way to do it. And FileMaker also has cloud hosting through Amazon. So you could also put the server on one of the Amazon cloud servers and host it there. And obviously that's just a little bit more of an expense just to pay for the hosting in addition to the software.
Right. So, but let's say we get the system in and we want to customize. How is that done? You'd have to tunnel into our server.
Yeah, typically we would have a VPN access as well, so that we could basically, and all we need is really access to the FileMaker port. So we would launch FileMaker and connect to the database like a user, and that's all we need access to. We don't need OS level access or anything else. We can customize the database just using a FileMaker client.
Yeah, and then what about hosting it at the cloud, so you can see it on your phone or on a website or?
Yeah, I mean, you can do those things as well without the cloud. I mean, the cloud is really just where the database lives, right? So if you put it on at your location, you can set it up to access it via the browser and iOS. If you put it in the cloud, you can do that as well. So usually, like most of the heavy lifting that I call it is done by a FileMaker client. So people who are doing like bidding, scheduling, job tracking, that kind of stuff usually have FileMaker Pro on a computer that they're using. People who do timesheets or want to look at their own schedule, you can do that with a web browser. You don't have to install FileMaker for them, or you can do it on the phone.
Okay, so yeah, to some degree, we're kind of leery about having it hosted here locally, just because there is a cost involved because we have shared resource. So I'm just looking at different options for either cloud hosting might be the easiest. Yep. In terms of a turnkey solution.
Sure.
Okay, but let's say we did get it hosted by Amazon Cloud via FileMaker.
Yep.
Would you have to have FileMaker on your system to admin?
Yeah, like I said, the people who are doing the kind of heavy lifting, like I said, the functions of doing bidding, job tracking, scheduling, that kind of stuff, they would have the FileMaker client installed on their computer. And then typically they would just access the database regardless of where it is, whether it's in the cloud or at your location. That would be basically seamless for them, you know?
Gotcha. So, and then in terms of costs, we're only talking about, and obviously the database that you set up for us, the interface, and then any changes. FileMaker Pro would be an additional cost, obviously.
That's correct. And I could point you to where you could look at those costs as well.
Okay. And then add one last question, I think, is the tier you have set up for cost. Is there a difference between admin access and, let's say, just a common, so to speak, user access?
I mean, not per se, but like I said,
Okay.
if you have freelancers or people who are just doing timesheets and you have like a lot of them, we'll work with you on that. So we're not going to try to beat you up on people who are kind of casual users of the system. So, you know, what you could do is maybe think about how many people you would have using it as administrators and regular users, and maybe how many people might do timesheets and that kind of stuff.
Okay. I think that's the bulk of the technical. Just really quick, if you can share the information, where do you see most of your clients doing their hosting? Is it with the Amazon FileMaker folks, or is it locally in their own buildings?
You know, the cloud option is relatively new development, so it's out there for a couple of years and it works well. So traditionally, our clients had done it in-house. Some of our clients also have bureaucratic reasons for doing it in-house, meaning like maybe they have IP that they don't want in the cloud, or they have other reasons for keeping it in-house. So that's one consideration. But I would say most of our more recent clients are doing the cloud option just because it's really, we'll set it up for you. It's, you know, pretty much say go, and we can put the database up there in an afternoon, you know?
Right. Now, the only problem I'm kind of stressing this is that we really don't have a DBA on staff to do any of this, and that might pose a problem, obviously. And in terms of,
you don't really, again, like FileMaker is not as complicated as setting up a lot of other databases, so we can do it for you. I would say basically just think about, I wouldn't think about it in terms of managing the server. We can help you with that, and we do that all the time.
Okay.
I would think about it more in terms of, you know, what other reasons you might have for either putting it in the cloud or keeping it in-house, you know?
Right. Okay. Cool.
Cool. All right, guys.
Thank you for your time.
No problem, and we'll be in touch. So long.